Hello, everybody. I'm Janae Osterhelt, Boston Globe culture columnist and creator of A Beautiful Resistance. Welcome to our special conversation with filmmakers JME and David Hill. JME is a director, filmmaker, and founder of Mother Mercy, and David Hill is the filmmaker and director of photography, I believe. So let's have a beautiful conversation today and talk about Process is the Project. I want to open by asking each of you just to kind of set a tone, what brings you joy?
Hmm, great question, Janae. Um, Change brings me joy. As difficult as change is, seeing things evolve and transform from the inside out truly brings me joy and purpose.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here. What brings me joy is my children, are my children. I have two of them. And as much as I'm ready for them to go back to school and stop homeschooling, being out, having them here is honestly just been a blessing in disguise and getting to connect with them on a day-to-day level. So my children bring me joy.
Thank you. Um, I, for people who don't know, I'm a huge fan of Mother Mercy and the short films and projects and art that comes out of it. But for people who don't know Jamie, can you tell them what Mother Mercy is and how these short films relate to the project?
Sure. Mother Mercy is an incubator, an arts incubator designed with a purpose to protect, teach, and grow our people by aligning creative work with spirit work. For the past 2 years, the call to create has been the portal, if you will, where this work has been demonstrated through a cohort of thinkers and makers. This year's film project is a result of our restraints throughout 2020. Our goal at the end of the call to create is always to have an open studio to showcase the process. And we weren't able to do that in 2020. And so we decided to make a film to document the process. And of course, I invited David, who is not only a long term dear friend, but a creative that I deeply respect and who I've been working with since the inception of Mother Mercy, before I knew the call to create would be such an important thing to our work. Um, so this film is a witnessing, literally a witnessing of the work that these 9 women did with each other internally, and also a witnessing of the work that David and I did together to push this forward, to not only raise up these women and their journey, but to find our own grounding and our own footing as artists who were facing some of the same things that the cohort were facing. So that's why we're here, and that's what we're watching.
And the guiding question this past 9 months was, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do?
So my answer has changed 3 times. Um, and if I may say, yesterday we acknowledged the murder of our dear brother, if I may, Malcolm X. And besides discipline and commitment in this work, I learned from him that we need to change and evolve in this work, and that it is completely possible to do so. So that is currently my answer to what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to change. I started with the answer of I was willing to do the work, and that came to me during the pandemic when it was a struggle, and then it evolved into willing to be seen, and now I'm deeply rejuvenated by this current answer of being willing to change. What about you, David?
For me, honestly, I thought about this as well. And I think what I'm willing to do is more. And I think working with Johnette each time makes me realize how much deeper I can go with my work and how much more I can do to create, because often my work is, I don't want to say mundane, but it doesn't allow me to dig deep and create. Sometimes maybe it's just, creating for a company or creating a video of an event, but Johnette's ideas that she brings to the table really allow me to see things from a new perspective. And it really gets me excited about the work and, to hear her ideas and realize like, all right, like we can dig a little deeper and do more. And I'm excited to continue working with her about on future projects. And hopefully this really motivates me internally to do more for myself as well and get these ideas out of my head and in front of somebody else's eyes. So more.
Speaking of more, we screened the first part, which was a short film. How many more parts are there? Because it ends with to be continued. And I know there's going to be more parts because we still have to see all of these amazing projects unfold.
You see me and David smiling. Like, that's a great question. We plan on making some edits to this first one. So there will be a re-release of this first one. We wanted to make sure that we got to participate in this lovely opportunity with the film festival. And so we wanted to make sure to show and prove. So there will be an extended version of part one. And I think there'll just be a part two, and then another like interlude. As you saw in the film, we have like the sci-fi element with Soames and Melissa Valdez and myself. So there will be, I guess, 2.5 more, or 1.5 more rather, projects for everyone to experience.
What inspired you to change the title from the guiding question, what are you willing to do to process as the project?
I felt that, well, one, I wanted to allow the films themselves to kind of grow and bloom on their own. And so I didn't want to rush to the answer, right? I wanted to literally show and reflect some of the process. And so a large part of this process is being seen, seeing yourself, seeing each other. That's something that would have happened at the open studio, but that was something that was happening at every meeting, every Zoom call. And I wanted to make sure that folks could actually be part of the process, and so not rush to answer this question, but like situate themselves as a person in this world. So it was just based on that, not rushing myself, not rushing the viewers, and just saying, this is about process for now, and we're gonna prepare you to answer this question. We want you to start thinking about it, but to David's point earlier, like we want there to be depth to it. So just giving folks a little room in the viewing to actually see these women, see themselves, and then be prepared to answer this question of what you're willing to do with depth. Does that make sense?
This year's class, Mother Mercy class, was all women, but I know last year's class was everybody. What is it different at all creating how you created this year, not just because of the pandemic, but also the classes, all women, your whole process? I would like you to walk the audience through the process because it's very much a communal process and it's different than other collective art creating that I think people are used to seeing, where people are kind of creating in silos and then they have a group show, whereas you have a syllabus and in meetings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Shout out to class of 2019, if you will, who taught me so much. Those folks were recruited and invited like by invitation. And the second group, there was an application process. And a lot of the folks who applied were involved in the work the previous year, whether that was working through the open studio, following us, supporting us. So I had a sense, I had a feeling that of who was going to apply. And I had a feeling that it might be all women. I think that in spaces that center women, all kinds of women, I think that there sometimes is a level of vulnerability that can happen that might not always happen in spaces where there are men and women and non-binary people, all folks together. I think that they really benefited from a space of being woman-centered. But that wasn't necessarily a major goal. Like I said, I had a feeling that that would happen. And I really, to credit to Spirit, right? I have to listen to what I'm being told, right? And so that's what it was called to do. And I had to answer. So yeah, I think without divulging like all the details of the meeting, I just think there's a level of vulnerability that was able to happen that often happens when women are together in sisterhood.
When is the application process going to open up for your next class?
Well, this year is about stabilizing. So we are not rushing to have a new cohort, but really want to continue to ask people this question of what you're willing to do. 2020 was different and strange and unprecedented for all of us. And taught me especially that process is the project. So as much as I want to move on and have something new, I think I was sat down, if you will, by the year and learned that I need to slow down, and that this work deserves to be analyzed, reflected upon, and stabilized in a way that wasn't happening in the pilot stages. So this year we want to I am focusing on the screenings of the film. And so bringing people together through screenings, through Zoom. We're planning in the summer to see if we can have a drive-in, drive-through when both of the films are together. So we're finding new ways for people to be involved that aren't necessarily in a closed cohort. So TBD in terms of when the recruitment will happen.
David, what has been the impact of this work on you?
Well, to be honest, I think that, like I said, it is above all things, it's inspired me. I think seeing, it's one thing, when somebody comes to you with an idea, a lot of people have these ideas and they're kind of like loosely thought out, and I have to kind of like break them apart and try to make them visually appealing. But I think Johnette, JME comes prepared. And she comes not only prepared, but she brings a level of like respect to the work, and her care for the work really shows it, and it allows me to, I think, see like the bigger picture and try to really understand like, wow, this is serious. And I think I've learned so much through these women, through this editing process, through this filming process. And again, I think it allows me to just be inspired to do more, whether it's for myself or through her. I think we both learned a lot through this project. And I think it's so funny that it's called Process is the Project, because for us, that was true as well. I think as prepared as Johnette was, as detailed as she was with the syllabus, as detailed as she was with the courses, it's a different process once you start filming and you trying to start shape it, and you're like, huh, all right, now what? And then it's like, how do we visualize this and get this story to come together cohesively? And I think Johnette really dug deep in these last couple months and reworked and reworked and reworked to get what you see now. And I think seeing that, like I said, going back to my answer, what am I willing to do is more. I think she inspired me to want to do more, because it's like, all right, if at first you don't succeed, let's rework it and get this right. And her level of commitment was just outstanding. So I think, again, just being inspired has been the biggest impact on me.
In the film, towards the end, there's this great statement that JME makes about creating for yourself and for each other, and kind of what it means and to witness. And James Baldwin says, what can we really do for each other except love each other and be each other's witness? Haven't we got the right to hope for more, so that we can really stretch into whoever we really are? So I wanted to ask you, Jamie, what does it mean, particularly for Mother Mercy, and just creating to witness?
What does it mean to witness? I think in order to witness, first you have to see yourself, right? I think that a lot of times our sight towards each other or the way we see each other can either be amplified or clouded by the ways that we see ourselves. And so I think to witness means to make room internally for self and for community, to make sure that that your ego, that your spirit, that all that you've been told about a person or about a situation is allowed to be still in order for you to be in a present moment and be with someone. I know the term holding space or making space is very popular right now and accessible. And so I would say that to witness is to make space internally in yourself, to welcome someone into yourself, and to really align in a human way, and not see a separation based on, you know, race, gender, all these different things, colorisms, but to really make room inside yourself for your community.
The pandemic, as you noted, you know, sat you down. It sat us all down. It slowed us down. It made us, I think, reassess things. But something that happened that I am thankful for is it really made people who had not, who had taken art for granted, understand the power of art, particularly in moments like this. Um, Not just with coronavirus, but also with the next chapter of revolution and what we're seeing. What is the artist's role when we're talking about change in society and solace and healing?
To tell the truth.
Mm.
To tell the truth about ourselves and about each other. Um, that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very important um, to tell the truth. And I think there's so many ways now, you know, I think art, the word art used to be very kind of like one thing back in the day when you used to think of like what an artist is. But I think art is so many things now, and there's so many ways people express themselves. And I think, you know, there's people are now benefiting um, from social media and being able to express themselves, live in their truth, and really showcase, you know, what can be in art and how diverse it can be, and allow the world to see it. And I think it now is the time where you just see, you know, you're exposed to so much, and you don't have to search far. You just got to search a little bit, and you'll see so many great things. And I mean, I'm proud to be a part of that community on some small level.
How does creating under the guise of a question change things? Because I know we talked about the meetings and the syllabus, but it's a really different thing to be prompted with a question and not to create right away, not to create that day, but to spend 9 months um, really poring over the answer to that question.
I think a guiding question allows for community to happen, and for silos to be broken down. Because sometimes you go in your own world to create, and sometimes you need that space to create, but we really need each other, right? And if we really want to do our job of telling the truth, that truth needs to be bounced off of other people. So I think the guiding question not only creates community, it creates structure. I think through structure, sometimes you get the most expansive types of freedom, which is an ironic thing. I also think the question forces folks to be a little bit more interrogate the work and the process a little bit more, and also create space for people to change. Because I encourage folks to, as I started with, to change your answer to the question. And so I think it prompts a level of depth, a level of evolution and transformation, and then ultimately community.
What is the role that Adrienne Maree Brown's emergent strategy plays in the incubator?
Emergent Strategy is a great text to inspire and to create community. I think that her combination or her experience in the nonprofit world, but also her engagement in doula work and spirit work, the fact that she raises up so many scholars and elders in this work, you know, Audre Lorde, Octavia Butler. I think her text it's a great text to inspire community and to give us actual tools. You know, sometimes community can just be an empty word and you actually need tools to practice community. And so in that text, she's helping you check yourself and check yourself in a way that allows you to make room and make space for community to happen. And I feel like it's a very accessible text. And it's a text that you can read multiple times and learn different things each time. You can read it backwards to frontwards. You can just take chapters out. So I've been grateful for it in 2019 and 2020. And, you know, probably will continue to use aspects of it. Some folks may have suspicion on how it's written. It's not a traditional kind of guidebook to community. But I think the layers really allow it to be inclusive. You know, if you're a revolutionary or a witch or a teacher, or just someone who wants to be in the know, you can see yourself in this book and you can actually get some strategies and tools to emerge.
Again, that book is Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown. What inspired the sci-fi element featuring Psalms and Melissa Valdez and yourself? Can you talk about the symbolism there?
Yeah, I love sci-fi, and The Matrix happens to be my favorite movie, but that's not the only reason. You know, as mentioned in Emergent Strategy, as Adrienne Maree Brown lifts up Octavia Butler, science fiction is kind of how we gonna get ourselves out of this jam. You know, this jam meaning this white supremacist world where we're not often allowed to exist in the future or imagine ourselves in the future. So besides really loving science fiction personally, I think science fiction is a tool for supporting the restoration of our imaginations. Our imaginations have been suppressed. Amnesia has been pumped into our breathing, you know, into our systems. And so I think science fiction allows us to reimagine ourselves and see ourselves in the future. Our liberation, the movement is not a linear movement. It's a spiral. And I feel like science fiction allows room and space for those spirals to happen. The storyline behind it around the piece with Psalms and Melissa Valdez is for us to really start thinking about liberation across dimensions, and what would it be like to be free, to be liberated, for Black folks to be liberated across every dimension. And I look forward to developing that storyline a little bit more with David as we move forward. Because, you know, you write this whole big story and then you get this 30-second little, you know, clip that you want to, you know, pour your heart into. But I really look forward to teasing that out. But yeah, science fiction just allows us to just push the envelope. We need more of our imagination to get free.
David, how did you feel what is so important to you about visuals?
I think, you know, visuals to me are everything. I think a story is king, but I think visuals support it. And I think they just speak so much to the screen. And I think for me, like trying to give Johnette's idea the proper visual, we approached it and we thought about it deep, and we just really tried to get it as close as possible with the abilities that we have, because I think it's when you see something, it just draws you in. And I think no matter what you know about the story, before you hear about it or learn about it, you see it. And I think it's very important to capture a person's imaginations or interest immediately. So I think the visuals have to be well thought out. They have to be particular. They have to be specific to the story you're trying to tell. And I think that was the challenge for us, because again, you have these ideas, but then you're like, all right, well, but how are we going to show this in a way that if somebody's just seeing it, they get that idea immediately? So we sat and we dwelled on it for a long time, and I think we were able to get, as close as we were because of, the care and the time we put in. But I do believe that the visuals are, one of the most important parts of the storytelling for this kind of project, for sure.
Oh, I agree. And I just love the way you two work together to marry kind of story and writing in the different projects, but also with visuals is just incredibly poetic and powerful. It was just really gorgeous to watch, and to sort of soak all in. We had an audience question that disappeared, or maybe I answered the wrong person. I did answer the wrong person. Sorry, E. E asked, were there any collaborative relationships that were formed through the incubator? And if so, what are they?
Were there any collaborative relationships formed through the
Yeah,
incubator?
I guess like some creative collaborations that came after the incubator started. Like everyone comes with their individual projects. Were there any people that?
Oh, yeah. I think that collaboration was happening throughout the whole process. So like an example, one of the folks in the cohort, Perpetual, was able to collaborate with Samantha, who's another person in the cohort. Samantha was able to collaborate with Perpetual and do some of her, sketching some of her self-portraits. I think that more collaboration will happen. I think that actually Sam was designing for other folks in the cohort. I think just meeting and talking through ideas as collaboration happening all the time. In terms of like a specific project, I think that's TBD. I wouldn't be surprised if these folks stay connected and do a lot of work together. I feel that David and I's collaborative work got stronger. Even though we've worked together, I think this project kind of solidified that we want to keep working with each other and bring more depth to this work. And I'm also excited to see, as David mentioned, the work that he wants to push forward and how I can support his new film initiatives. So yeah, I think not to be vague, I just think there's so much collaboration happening all the time. It's part of like existing in the Mother Mercy community, and it's hard to kind of like pinpoint a specific instance where it happened.
David, what is some of the work that you're going to start pushing forward?
Well, I think that's to be determined as well. But, for so long, I started, Johnette and I went to high school together, and we, used to create way back in the day when, she was more in photography. I did a little bit of photography and I did video. And I wish I knew then what I know now, that this could be a career, because for so long I put it off and kind of reconnected with it 10 years after high school. And when I first started that, it really was about working for other people, and creating for other people, and not so much for myself. And I think only until recently, like, over the last couple of years, I've had these ideas, but, I've needed the jolt to kind of like kickstart them into motion. And like I said, get out of my head and onto a page and then eventually onto a screen. And I think for me, it's just about, like all of us, we're just so inspired by art these days, whether it's like something for entertaining, whether it's something for just learning. And I think I want to create something that moves people, in a way to inspire people to dig deeper in themselves, to feel good, to entertain. But I think only through watching Jeanette's progression as a filmmaker, because I don't think she probably initially thought of herself as that, and maybe not now, but I think she's still scratching the surface. As good as I think this is, I think, a couple years from now is going to be even more elevated. But she inspired me to say, you know what, all right, I gotta get started too. So I don't have anything. Well, I do have something specific, but it's not fleshed out enough yet that I'm working on. But it involves something that's dear to me, kind of like we talked about in the beginning, which is my children. It was inspired by a story from my son, and I know it's there. It's just got to come out. And I think this has forced me to, like you said, what am I willing to do is more. And it's like this has to be the time.
Again, another bottom quote, the time is always now.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beauties of collaborative communities is
Mhm.
just when we come together as a collective, magic happens. JME would say spells happen. Um, I think it's how we inspire each other and build each other and ask each other new questions that makes us stronger and more expressive creators. Lisa Bello, shout out to Bello, asked, what will the future of Mother Mercy collaborations look like and how do you envision the next phase?
What will the future of Mother Mercy's collaborations look like, and how do I envision the next phase? So I'm happy that we will be announcing a residency program for Mother Mercy. And so we will have an organizer in residence, a designer in residence, and a writer in residence. And those folks will help launch some new projects. So you all will be hearing about a project called Acts of Mercy. You all will be hearing about a writing retreat. You all will be hearing about these screenings and drive-through experiences. And through that work, like I said, I hope that will not only sustain what we've done, but bring in new collaborations. Just as much as I want to make sure to hold tight to the people that I grew up with, like David, and make sure that I'm helping to raise up people in my direct community, I am super excited about branching out and working with people that I've never worked with before in Boston, nationally, internationally. So yeah, you all will be hearing about those projects and hearing about the folks who will be in residency with us very soon.
And I know that we already talked about this in the beginning, but I think some of our viewers tuned in a little later, and let's just remind them one more time about part 2 and what part 2 will entail and when they might be able to look out for it.
Sure. So part 2 we will dive a little bit more deeper into the question of what you are willing to do. I'm not even going to put a pretend date on when it will be done.
Avatar 2. Like it might be in a couple 10 years from now, or maybe next year, maybe next month.
Process is the project. But yeah, part 2 will allow us to dig deeper into the question. And also I'm hoping as I continue to raise up the voices of these women who gave their time, their spirit, their energy, sometimes, when it was, more challenging than they thought. In addition to raising their voices up, I want the film to also help uncover more about what Mother Mercy is and does. Sometimes the notion of an incubator can be very abstract, and the fact that we're not a physical space yet, I think some folks find it hard to figure out how to collaborate or what we're doing. And I hope that the film work will continue to help us communicate to folks who we are, what we do, and what we can do. So yeah, that's part 2.
Evelyn Blush wants to know, is Mother Mercy going to be a physical space?
Yes. Period.
A big shout out to Evelyn Blush, because her music was incredible.
It was. I was
was
really big when I saw her name.
yeah, I think that was there was a few moments that were like pivotal for me sitting through this project. But I'm always like mystified by like how people play music or play an instrument rather, because I pick up a guitar and I'm like rah, 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 rah. But when she started playing, it was just like magic. Like she was singing, we were the room was lit in a certain way, and that was one of the moments, and I was happy that some of that made it into the film, because that was such a special moment and impromptu. So I'm happy that was able to be witnessed by the viewers.
What would you like to see happen in arts? Anytime we're in moments like this, like the pandemic, like times of strife, the art that follows is always incredibly powerful.
Mhm.
Um, are there any specific artists you're looking forward to or that you're inspired by? And it could be any kind of artist that you want to see what work they create next.
That we worked with in the cohort?
It could be
Or just
any
in
artist.
general? I'm excited. I mean this honestly for all of them. To what I learned about the first cohort, or just the work that I do in general, is that sometimes it takes a whole year to figure out what you went through, or what happened, or how you've been changed. And so I'm excited to hear from them all in a year, and to be connected, to see how the projects that they started in the Call to Create blossom and bloom. But I feel very confident that their experience with each other will move them and motivate them and push all of their work forward. And I'm excited to see all of it.
Yeah, I would say the same. I don't have a specific artist that I am watching and waiting on, but I am inspired now because I think people are, with the accessibility to create, even with a cell phone being so accessible, I think there's so much more to come, and there's so much more out there. And I think, sometimes we're waiting for something or thinking it will come, but I think, a couple quick Google searches, you'll find so much. And I think I've started to see more of that. And I'm also, and it's not just an internal plug, but excited for JME and what is to come, because I think this really forced her to step in that role and live in that role of a director and a filmmaker. And I know she is going to dig deep for whatever lies next. And I mean, we're really already talking about some things just to elevate this so we can really put the emphasis and the care on this next project that it deserves.
Oh, I agree. I think so many people call JME Mother Mercy instead of understanding Mother Mercy, the collective and the incubator, because she's such this spellcaster and this leader
Mhm.
and creator of many things. So we are all very excited to see what JME does next. If you could, we will send a recording to everyone who registered, even those who didn't log on today. And the website will be on there and all of the information. We'll put Adrienne Marie Brown's book in there as well. But um, if you could just quickly, for people who might miss the email, say where they can find you on Instagram and on the internets.
Sure. So on the internet waves, we have www.mothermercy.org for our main website. You can learn more about the Call to Create. You can watch David and I's first film project, which was directed by Amin, who was in the first Call to Create. You can catch us on Instagram at @SeeMotherMercy, SEE Mother Mercy. We also have processistheproject.com, which isn't fully active, but that will be a space where some of this film work or behind the scenes of the film work might live. But See Mother Mercy on Instagram and mothermercy.org are the two primary places to find us.
And as you were creating this work, Courage has a great question. As you were creating this work, did you see any truths, since that is the artist's role, that felt uniquely important for Black communities and Black communities here in Boston?
Courage coming with the questions. Did I see any truths that were possible? Is that was a
No, that felt uniquely important for Black communities in Boston to hear.
wow. Courage, why didn't you text me this question before so I could think about it? um, I don't know if I'm going to answer this question directly, but what I'm inspired to say is that as someone who was born and raised in Boston and who is about to leave her 30s behind, I think a truth that I saw is that Black Boston can do anything that any other Black community in any other city, any other state, any other country can do. We need to believe in ourselves deeply. And, we are a small but mighty community here in Boston. And with Black liberation being the ultimate goal, at least for me, I think the truths that were exposed were around our need to like really be united on all fronts, and not necessarily in a social way, but really understand that if we are going to be free, if we are going to be liberated, we have to see each other and see ourselves and see each other in this work, and that needs to be king. The truth of sight, the truth of the importance of community in this long haul of liberation. So that doesn't, I don't know if that answers Courage's question, but that's what's on my heart, is how much I believe in our capacity and our ability to keep creating and doing what we want to do.
And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Before we close out, I have one last question that I've been asking everybody. And that is, what is the Black history that you carry with you? And that's for both of you.
You go first, David.
You know, I think there's a lot of things I could look into and deep into, like in our past, but last year I had an incident where my mother got really sick, not COVID related, and she had to stay with me for a little while. Unexpected major surgery happened, and I think through her recovery, we talked in a way that we hadn't talked in a long time, and I got to really learn about her history as a single Black mother raising two boys, and I was so thankful for that. And I think it allowed our relationship to grow so much, and then it in a way made me even more thankful for she was here with my kids and her grandchildren, and I'm so thankful was thankful to learn about a piece in her life that for a long time I just didn't know. And I think it strengthened our relationship. So in the most recent thing, I think I'm thankful for my mother's Black history, if I may. And I'm carrying that with me through this year, because I think answering the question again, the process, the projects that I will be working for when I first put one out is centered on family. And that's what I think I'm carrying with me to hopefully this year or sometime in the near future be able to make into a visual form.
Thank you.
I think the Black history that I'm carrying with me is active and visible. If I'm in a full conversation with you, I'm telling you something about old Black Boston that somebody told me. I'm telling you something that my grandma said, or something that happened in Mississippi or in Detroit. And so I think that everything that I am and everything that I put out in the world reflects all of the history that was poured into me by my family, by my elders, by my mentors. So I carry it all, and it's an honor to share what I know with people in conversation, visuals, and all the ways that I create.
Thank you so much. It's been just delightful to share a little lunch hour with you. Thank
Wait,
you.
Janae, can you answer the question?
Oh, the Black history I carry
No,
with
no,
me?
no. What are you willing to do?
Oh, I'm willing to be willing. Um, I'm willing to be willing, and every day that means something different. It always means witnessing. It always means holding space. It always means loving us. But how that, I think, manifests is different, depending on what the day calls for.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We all look forward to part 2, which will be coming TBD. Keep up with Mother Mercy at See Mother Mercy on Instagram. And let's watch these projects unfold and continue to make this magic together. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.